Donald Trump, former president of the United States, has said the unthinkable. Well, he thought the unthinkable. I don't know. He can declassify by just thinking something is declassified. That's what he told Sean Hannity. I will break down why he said this, how it plays into his legal defense potentially, and the DOJ has received a ruling from a federal court in their favor. Here's Donald Trump explaining to his good friend Hannity how he has massive brain power and can declassify by way of thought. Here it is.
So let me ask you this question, because I think this is the next logical question, because the president of the United States, you, unlike, say, Hillary Clinton in her case, right, a president has the power to declassify.
Correct.
Okay. You had said on Truth Social a number of times you did declassify.
I did declassify, yes.
Okay. Is there a process? What was your process to declassify?
There doesn't have to be a process, as I understand it. You know, there's different people say different things, but as I understand, there doesn't have to be. If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it, because you're sending it to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever you're sending it. And there doesn't have to be a process. There can be a process, but there doesn't have to be. You're the president, you make that decision. So when you send it, it's declassified. I declassified everything. Now, I declassified things, and we were having a lot of problems with NARA. You know, NARA is a radical left group of people running that thing, and when you send documents over there, I would say there's a very good chance that a lot of those documents will never be seen again. There's also a lot of speculation because of what they did, the severity of the FBI coming and raiding Mar-a-Lago. Were they looking for the Hillary Clinton emails that were deleted, but they are around someplace? Were they looking for the spying on Trump's?
You had it.
No, they may be saying, they may have thought that it was in there.
Okay.
And a lot of people said the only thing that would give the kind of severity that they showed by actually coming in and raiding with many, many people is the Hillary Clinton deal, the Russia stuff, or, I mean, there are a number of things. The spying on Trump's campaign. So they spied on my campaign.
Wow. Let me count the ways here. Okay, first of all, he says that he can actually declassify by way of thinking it is declassified. This is a power, obviously, by the president or that the president of the United States has. We've never heard this before. One thing about Donald Trump, he comes up with lies that we never even considered. So he is saying, yes, these documents are declassified. Initially, he said he declassified these documents based on a standing order. Remember that proclamation? Well, in order for that to work as a legal defense or affirmative defense, you must find at least one person who heard the standing order. He could find nobody. No one corroborated the standing order. So now he says, here's what I will say. I will say that I thought it in my brain, and because of my thought, it is thus declassified. I corroborate me. Let's go beyond that. He's now saying, well, it looks as if they were trying to find Hillary Clinton's emails, or maybe Russia, or perhaps how they spied on his campaign. This is simply misdirection. So here's the thing, Trump. If the documents are declassified as you suggest, that means they are declassified, not for you, but for us. We would have access to them. And if you did declassify these documents, why is it that we don't have access to them? Why will your attorneys not expose what was in the material? Or can you just say it in an interview with Sean Hannity? Just say, hey, Sean, here's what was in those boxes that I declassified. Because Trump, if you really believe you declassified those documents, why would you be afraid to tell us what it is? What's in them? What content rested on top of those papers? Trump is a fool, but he's not that much of a fool. He's not willing to actually tell you what the documents were, because he knows good and damn well he never declassified anything. All right, Trump and those close to him claimed initially, although not in court, that he had declassified documents while he was still president of the United States, but they have not offered evidence to suggest this. On Wednesday, the ex-president took it to a new level, insisting that he not only didn't have to tell anyone, but that he could do it without a word. All he needed was his mind. You're the president of the United States. You can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it. Exact quote. Let me be very clear. Trump is absolutely 100% incorrect. There's an established protocol for declassification and classification. The president does have significant power. Now, if he would have created an executive order, he could have set the parameters for how classification works. The president has that authority. Presidents have established and developed through a series of executive orders dating to the era encompassing World War II and the early Cold War. The current directive, Executive Order 13526, was issued by President Barack Obama in 2009. Here's the irony of the whole thing. The executive order issued by former President Barack Obama in 2009 sets parameters that must be respected by the President of the United States by way of law, by way of statute, by way of executive action. If Trump would have simply changed that directive, he could have possibly gotten away with it, but he did not. So the last executive directive is from 2009. The irony of this, that what may actually nail him to this Espionage Act charge or investigation that will eventually be a charge, is a directive written by President Barack Obama in 2009. Let's go to the DOJ. The Federal Court of Appeals, this panel on Wednesday, granted the Justice Department's request to resume reviewing classified documents seized by former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, seized from the residence for its ongoing criminal investigation. The ruling is a win for the Department of Justice after a federal judge temporarily blocked investigators from examining Trump's storage of the sensitive document records, which the DOJ argued would hinder its investigation. Now, this is interesting because initially Trump claimed that all of this information was declassified and he did not want the court to utilize this in a prosecution against him. That was the initial claim. Well, his defense attorneys are not willing to say that these documents are declassified. They're not willing to submit that these documents were declassified, not declassified. They are saying in their actions that Trump did in fact steal classified information. Now, while Trump may maintain they were declassified, he has admitted to Sean Hannity he was in possession of the documents, he stole the documents, and the only question left now is, were the documents classified or not? I think that's a slam dunk answer. Yes, they were classified. The US Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit said in its ruling granting a partial stay that Trump, and I quote, has not even attempted to show that he has a need to know the information contained in the classified documents, nor has he established that the current administration has waived that requirement for these documents, wrote the Trump-appointed judges Britt Grant and Andrew Brashear, and the Obama-appointed judge Robin Rosenbaum. Okay, now where do you go from here? Really interesting. It seems as if every single avenue has absolutely no win in a court of law. Even the pre-trial dynamics that are happening right now, the pre-indictment dynamics, the investigative dynamics are not in favor of Donald Trump. If he would have just closed his mouth, they may have been able to come up with an affirmative defense. Now that he has offered these statements on the record, which by the way, these statements can enter into federal evidence at some point in the future. The fact that he has offered these comments for the record will end up damning him in an actual trial. But we have an attorney at law on the show. She can clarify things. Attorney, how do you see this? Am I wrong here?
Oh, Dr. Rashad, I was going to say that exact thing. There's two areas here. It's a court of public opinion and a court of law. And if I were his attorney, I would tell him not to be talking. Of course, all of his attorneys are either also getting in trouble with him or afraid to stand up to him. That's the problem. Because when he said there, he just has to think it, that's not the law. It's a really bad thing for him to have said on record. It could easily be shown in a courtroom proceeding later. And here's the thing. He this is not surprising, right? He thinks he's clearly above the law. He acted like this while he was president, that as president, you have unfettered power and you can do whatever you want. And those, the Republicans really fed into that. The first impeachment hearing where he withheld the money to Ukraine in order to get something in return, that was also a very similar act, him acting outside the law and thinking he can do it because he's president. But the president of the United States does not have that kind of power here. But people around him kind of allowed him to have that kind of power. He was not really taken to task for that. And so this, though, is different because it's not a political situation where his maybe colleagues in Congress can save him. This is a court of law. And at that respect, it does seem really clear that he's broken the law. He's certainly not putting any kind of defenses. Him saying that he can just do it because he's president is not the law. So in that respect, I think that this ends actually really badly for him in terms of like the legal consequence.
Yeah, we will see exactly how this continues to shape. But here's another dynamic. If the sensitive material, the classified information, has to do with nuclear weapons or atomic energy, Congress created laws decades ago that restricted the president's ability to have access to that kind of information or to declassify that information. The prerequisite is you must consult with the DNI director. The director of national intelligence has to be consulted first before information that contains nuclear or atomic related matters can be declassified. So if that's part of it, once again, nail in the coffin.